story has taken quite a few turns. There was the arrest of a man named Tyron McAlpin. Phoenix police officers have now been suspended in different forms for this. 3 officers involved in this case. There's body cam video of this arrest. I'm going to give you the basic overview, and then I want to talk to Darrell Kriplean. And the basic overview is that these cops were informed that a person was a suspect in an attack, and he was identified by the victim that that's the guy that did it. So they went to go and talk to the guy. The guy tried to evade contact with the police. The police made contact. The guy began to fight, and he was wearing earbuds. It turns out he has CP, and he also is deaf in one ear. So the issue here is the officers couldn't possibly have known that because he was wearing earbuds. So my point is the officers have been suspended. They were cleared of any wrongdoing. They were told they were within policy, and now it's all changed. To talk about that from the Phoenix Law Enforcement Association is Darrell Kriplean, their president. Did I lay it out basically the right way, Darrell?
Yeah, good morning, Mike. You sure did.
So let's talk about your position, because you called it appalling in a statement, and you're not prone to always, you don't use strong words. You're not looking to pick a fight all the time. But what is it unique about this that's got you so worked up?
Well, Mike, the investigation doesn't support the findings. And I will tell you this, there seems to be this narrative out there that this person was misidentified by the police officers, which is absolutely untrue. These officers were investigating an alleged crime that a victim was reporting at the same time they were contacting him for another issue. And he points this person out. Now, as police officers, we have a duty to investigate crimes as far as we can, right? And if someone is pointing out someone who may be involved in that, we have a duty to go and talk to that person. But what's interesting is that while they were trying to make their way over to Mr. McAlpin, he made several abrupt movements to avoid being in the line of where the officers could contact him. And this went on for several minutes. And finally, when they try to talk to him in this parking lot, he's ignoring them. We have the earbuds in. There's no reason for us to even believe or even know that this person might be deaf or hard of hearing. And when the officer goes to grab the person, to detain him, to discuss this incident, he immediately starts to fight. These officers have a right to defend themselves.
Didn't he bite an officer?
He did. As he was fighting with these officers, one of the officers tried to affect a pressure point to the face, the nose, the bottom of the nose area, and he was able to bite that officer so hard that there were punctures in his hand.
What's confusing to me is this, that I do know that there was an investigation that was done. There were experts on use of force that looked into this, and they all came to the conclusion that this was within use of force policies. The guy was arrested. He was in jail for over 20 days because he had assaulted police officers and started a fight. They were cleared of any wrongdoing. Why the reopening of this, and why now do command at Phoenix Police Department say that these guys need to be suspended and retrained?
Like, it comes down to outside influences that haven't been a police officer or currently have never been a police officer or currently not a police officer having an effect on this investigation. Now, let's think about this. The incident occurred August 19th of 2024. The investigation didn't even begin until October 16th of 2024. So in that time, this was this was within policy, according to our experts, who the department has spent tens of thousands of dollars in training. It was in policy until it became a headline, right? And then what has happened is our department's upper management has basically bowed down to the vocal minority who believe that they really want to paint this as some sort of racially biased incident, which in fact it is not. It had nothing to do with race. It had to do with our officers doing their job, trying to investigate a crime that was alleged by a victim.
So I want to go from the inside out. I want to start with the inside with these officers. Are they planning some kind? Is there an appeals process? Can they appeal this? And if they can, will they?
Yeah, so they have due process rights that include a right to appeal the discipline to the Civil Service Board, and we are actually preparing for that right now.
And so the second question is, and I made a statement earlier, it was me again, it's just common sense, it's not with any inside knowledge, but when you do something like this, when there is something that's happened in the way you just described it, when a cop is doing their job and everything seems to be okay, and then all of a sudden it becomes public, and now there's an investigation and suspension, it would seem to me that it would make cops not want to be proactive, that they would only do what the minimum was required of them, because anything that they do could be misconstrued, investigated, and they could be publicly chastised for something they didn't do wrong. Why would they involve themselves in something that they didn't have to involve themselves in? Is self-preservation. Am I wrong?
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Mike. I mean, our officers go to work every day knowing that they may make the ultimate sacrifice. But now on top of that, they've got to worry about every interaction that they have with an individual within the community who may or may not have been involved in a crime, and whether or not that is going to become a headline where they might lose their livelihood and their ability to support their family.
What are you saying within the ranks of the Phoenix Police Department? How is this being discussed? I mean, today, obviously this is a big story for all of us in the news. Every show on our station's talking about it. Our news department is. We know all the news outlets in town are writing about it or talking about it. But what are the cops saying? What's happening within the Phoenix Police Department?
Folks are concerned. I'm telling you. You know, the chief's statement that said that, we will continue to support our officers for training and guidance and support them when they're placed in difficult situations every day, that's hollow. That is not something that these officers believe that this department does. They do not believe they have the support of Interim Chief Sullivan. And let's look at him real quick. I mean, he's a very nice man, but as a department leader, I mean, this is someone who is working on a restricted as post certificate, so he's not even allowed to make an arrest. Right. So he feels qualified to judge people who are arresting folks and having to be involved in a violent encounter, and whether or not that is in policy or not in policy. This is very concerning to my membership. And I can tell you that in all of the DOJ consent decree cities, what you see commonly is a reduced amount of uses of force. And that is because the officers are no longer engaging with people that they should be engaged in. Right. The DOJ will stop it right there and say, our decrees have reduced the amount of uses of force in the city, but they don't take it a next step further. And what's happening is violent crime goes through the roof because these perpetrators aren't being held accountable.
Yeah, and I have a good rapport with the chief's office, and I've talked with them on many occasions, and I know that there's a balance. I mentioned earlier that my brother is on the command staff in the sheriff's department in Florida. Different animal, because the sheriff's an elected official, doesn't answer to a city council or a city manager, just to voters. So the issue for me is that the politics of this is that a chief has to balance the political side of things in dealing with city councils and city managers, but at the same time they have to deal with they have to protect their officers, and there's a hard balance, isn't it?
It absolutely is. And I will tell you, Mike, I've been doing this job a long time, and uses of force are never pretty. I don't care what the circumstances around it, they're never pretty. But we are reactionary as a group, as a profession, and when we have to use force, you need to stand by your officers to go, look, it's ugly. We've reviewed it, and our experts have looked at it, and we have found this to be within policy. Now, if you don't like how it looks, or you don't like how it played out, there's the beginning of the story where we're being held accountable for 100% of the outcome, even though you're only 50% of the equation. So, I mean, there's two parts to this whole thing, and we react to what is presented to us.
Yeah, and I've said that many times. I look forward to seeing what happens next, because if there's going to be an appeals process, I'm anxious to see how that goes moving forward. And how quickly? Last question is, how quickly will that happen? Do you believe that they will get their day to appeal this, and how quickly will that be resolved?
It's not a quick process, unfortunately. It's going to be several months in the future, but we'll be sure to update you guys about what the outcome is. As
always, I love talking to you, man, and I look forward to talking to you again. And I'm sorry it's under these circumstances.
Thanks for watching the Mike Broomhead Show. Catch up on Amazing Arizonans, a KTAR News podcast, and click the button in the middle to subscribe.